Welcome to the 11 Warriors show for Thursday, March 28th, 2024. Jason Priestess, Chris Lauterbach, Ramzy Nasrallah in the house. Guys, how are your brackets right now?
Go ahead, Ramzy.
Who do you have, buddy?
I did the Autopick. I didn't actually go and choose. I was in the middle of multitasking. Hit that just to have something submitted and checked back a week after the weekend, and I had Mississippi State winning it all.
Pretty bold.
Here's the thing: as bad as my picks were, A, they weren't mine, and B, I'm still beating some people. So
imagine those people, right? For them. It's Chalk City this year, man. Chris, are you in trouble too? Your bracket in pretty good shape?
Well, I'm actually leading the one that Ramzy and I are in that Garrick runs on ESPN, but I can't win. I have like a 3% chance to win. I had Kentucky getting to the final, so I'm cooked. But right now I'm actually in first place. But if you click on that little thing that tells you like the odds to win or whatever, I legit have a 3% chance. So.
Yeah, you're cooked.
Yeah.
So talk your shit now is what I say, right?
Or just, yeah, well, I mean, it's $5, right? So it's it's
right.
not worth really talking too much shit, but I'm more worried about what's going on in my Fanatics or my BetMGM or that kind of thing, especially as the games fire back up tonight. Now that, you mentioned chalky. I like that. I like some first round upsets, that kind of thing. But once you get to the 16, it's like, man, let's have some heavyweights going at each other. So, fun first couple days there, but I'm ready for heavyweights to start going at it now.
Yeah, I mean, the sum of all seeds left in the Sweet 16 is 53.
Yeah.
And that's the second lowest in a decade. I mean, the average is usually around 75 for the Sweet 16. In 2021, we got 94, man. That was just a bananas year for the dance. And I don't know. I get what you're saying about wanting good teams to play each other. But, man, I love the chaos, too. I do. I love the Cinderella stories. I love those little schools going nuts. And
it depends on your team. I mean, Oral Roberts, Wichita State.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been on the receiving end of some of these, like, oh, scrappy underdogs. Oh, hell, there goes our team.
Hey, you got to hand it to Oral Roberts, man. You got,
best 15 seed ever, from what I heard.
Give Oral Roberts credit, is what I say,
with
right?
a 900-foot upset.
Yeah, that was a fun game.
Give him credit.
We're in the Jake Diebler era. Buckeyes did lose Tuesday night in the, the quarterfinals of the NIT to Georgia. 79-77 at the shot. I'm never going to get upset about an NIT loss. I don't have it in me at this age to get salty about a loss in the NIT. But I don't like losing to Georgia in anything. So, I mean, I guess I'm pulling emotions there. What are your thoughts, guys, on the NIT experience? Worthwhile? Did you enjoy? Do you think the team got something out of it?
I think the mission was accomplished. I think that if you're rolling with Diebler, wasn't my first choice. I'm still not certain. I think it was Ohio State's first choice, but I think if you're picking him, you're rolling with him, and you're rolling on, hey, we think we got a pretty decent roster here, and we got some guys next year we're excited about. I think you played enough basketball to give those guys a feel for what the culture would be under Jake as the head coach, and let those guys play with each other for a little bit longer to hopefully kind of galvanize them to want to come back. So I think from that standpoint, whether you win the NIT, which would have been fine, or you get as far as they got, kind of bowing out Tuesday night, I think they still played enough extra basketball under Diebler that anybody that has a decision that you're hoping comes back, whoever that may be on your own personal favorites list, I think that they saw enough there to kind of make a decision, and I would imagine most would come back. That certainly that Jake would want to come back.
Yeah, what's worse to you guys, losing an NIT quarterfinal game to an SEC team or losing a Cotton Bowl to an SEC team?
Right,
football, yeah, by a mile, yeah.
I didn't really care about either of those.
Yeah.
But I wanted the extra
But
sports.
still,
in the case of the Cotton Bowl, I wish that game wouldn't have been played.
Well, I don't want to. I'm not hating. It sounds like I'm hating on the program, but like I've watched enough NIT basketball. Like I wasn't cheering for them to lose, but I'm also totally fine with it. Arranging my life around another NIT game. If I was going, hey, maybe, right? Because Hinkle Fieldhouse is sweet, and that would be fun. But to watch another game potentially on ESPN Plus, or I guess it wouldn't be that now if they get to the Final Four of the NIT. But I was also fine
trajectory
for it to mercifully end.
After Valentine's Day, this was a different team. And I think if the season begins after Valentine's Day, that team's in the tournament because they had an anchor. The death rattle of the Holtman era is what prevented them from making the tournament. Everything that happened after Holtman was they were a single digit seed in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. And let's talk about that, man, because Diebler inked that 5-year deal, 2.5 mil a year. Went 8-3 as the head coach, as an interim head coach, and as kind of like I guess in the NIT, he was the official head coach at that point in time. Wins over number 2 Purdue, at Michigan State of all places to snap that over a year losing streak on the road. Clobbered Michigan at home to one of the final games of the season. Always love seeing that. Top number 7 Iowa in this in the second round of the big tournament. Won a couple of NIT games. Gave Illinois. Should have beat Illinois. I mean, honestly, like I hate being the refs lost that game for my favorite team kind of guy, but the refs absolutely cost Ohio State that game. If we're being real.
Yeah, 31 points in the final 8 minutes with 3 baskets coming off of not fouls.
Yeah, unreal.
That's peculiar.
I feel like the fouls are doubled up, right?
Fearless basketball. You win and lose games, but they won trying. They lost the games that they lost attempting to win and not attempting to not lose.
Right.
Which speaks to 2 things. One, the Holtman style of play, which he just did not adjust to, which cost him the role, but also to a degree how Ohio State's football has entered the money season of its schedule. You can learn from both sports. Like go down trying to win the damn game, not like being afraid of losing.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, you had something you want to throw in there?
Oh, just on that Illinois game, I think you hit it. The refs obviously did Ohio State no favors. I like the way Ohio State competed in that game. I think the fouls were almost a 2-1, like 28-14 or something crazy like that. But I also think part of it was Illinois had a much bigger and better front line, and that's something that needs to get addressed next year. I mean, when you are the aggressor in the paint, you are going to get more fouls. There were some bad calls in that game, but I think to me it was a signal of just, hey, if you want to play, especially in the Big Ten, you're going to play with big boys. You got to roll with a little bit bigger, a little bit more talented front line. Like Felix has some strengths, don't get me wrong, but you need a stronger, whether it's the backup or whatever, you got to shore up that front line a little bit, at least in this conference.
There's an available guy from Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, as of tonight.
Yeah.
Big dude, yeah. I mean, to me, Chris, I know you're still kind of jury's out on Jake, but to me, he's passed a lot of tests already. He righted the ship after Holtman. He won some games in the NIT, did well in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, Illinois was the best team in that tournament. Ohio State should have beat him, had him dead to rights there. So he's passed some tests. Now, there were some moments in the Cornell game in the opening round of the NIT when Cornell had the lead in the second half. And you're like, man, this is about to be the biggest case of buyer's remorse in Ohio State basketball history. But, pulled that game off, and he's got more work to do. But to Ramzy's earlier point, man, just night and day in the demeanor and the attitude of his team compared to the previous guy.
And the previous guy kind of sucked, though, so I want to give Diebler some credit for that. But I would say a couple things. Pretty small sample size. And I'm not anti-Diebler. I just don't know how people could say it's a slam dunk because there's no history. I don't know how you could possibly know that. You can guess that and be proven right.
Right.
But you don't know that now because there is nothing you can draw from that says that's a slam dunk. That's my thing. I'm not anti-Diebler. I'm anti-hiring a guy with no experience, or at least understanding that is a certain level of gamble. Nothing is rock solid, but it's not even like it's some mid-major coach that has done something at a smaller level, and now you're trying to come up with the big boys. And you mentioned it. I think the on-court stuff we've seen is awesome. Right, the same guys Holtman was losing with. And they were playing with some fire. Yeah. They were playing to win to your point. They picked up the tempo. He played more depth. He did a whole lot of things that Holtman absolutely could have done and chose not to, and it cost him his job. So I give Diebler credit for that for sure. But that's an important piece of running a program. But recruiting and manage all these other things that go into it, it's just hard to say, oh, yeah, for sure, that's going to work out perfectly after 11 games of on-field coaching and kind of running the program. But there's just a long way to go. So I'm not down on Diebler. I refuse to believe that he was maybe the first choice, but he could work out great. I guess that's the beauty of it, is this stuff's a bit of a crapshoot.
The recruiting chops are there. I mean, he was recruiting studs to Vanderbilt. He now has he has to prove everyone who outranks him at Ohio State correct with the hire, which means he's going to have advocates and allies on the org chart that are going to help him out. A couple of things can be true, by the way. Illinois can be built to compete in the Big Ten with a massive front line, and things can be very stinky when Ohio State has a 12-point lead late in the second half and all of a sudden decides fouling. That the sequence of the fouls piling up didn't make any sense at all. That was completely wacky.
I agree.
I don't like the Dickerson hire, if we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
This is the bench coach that was responsible for big men in the late stage of the Thad Matta era. Think about what those big men were like. Like after Evan Ravenel on, it was like we just had dudes who stood there. Amir Williams was the poster child for guys who looked like they were born to play basketball but hated playing basketball. And just did not see the development, did not see much of anything. It seemed like he was sort of sent elsewhere to take his head coaching job, and now he's back. And this is a known commodity. Unless he's learned something while abroad in South Carolina or wherever he was coaching, I don't understand why you bring a guy like that back.
Yeah, you wonder kind of too if he was brought back to give him some kind of gray matter, so an older voice, an older mind in the room, kind of like what they did with Juwan at Michigan. It backfired up there, but I'm with you. Amir was a McDonald's All-American. And within 3 years, he was like the last guy taken at the RPAC when they were playing pickup. They're like, no one wants Amir on their team. He's the only Ohio State athlete I've ever thought is straight up stole their scholarship.
I just don't feel like John Wooden
Christmas in the tournament, and then
he had good 9 minutes. Nothing. Good 9 minutes, in that game. But I will say in defense of anyone, I guess I don't think John Wooden was going to coach Amir up either. I mean, some of it is just, do you want to be good? And sometimes recruiting services are wrong and and all that, right? But I don't know. Dickerson was I thought that was interesting too. And I think I said it a few weeks ago. Like everybody's like, oh, just get an assistant. It has a lot of experience. Well, if you're doing that, did you hire the right guy? I think is the question, right? Like if you need an assistant because your head coach doesn't have the chops or you're worried about it, then did you hire the right head coach? But I do think at least Dickerson was on some on a staff with some good teams as well. But
I'll counter that because I will, because that's not uncommon in business and technology, especially like when Facebook was starting to get massive, you got the young guy running it, Zuckerberg, right? They would bring in a bunch of C-level executives that have experience in the space to kind of guide them. And he's the visionary. He's the guy that's, and obviously Diebler can be the visionary, the game plan guy, the recruiting guy. He comes from like basketball royalty in the state. I saw his dad resigned as a high school coach. I'm sure his dad's going to help him out there too as well. And that's a good person to have in your corner because he probably knows every coach in the state. I mean, that can't hurt in recruiting. Chris, you did say the last guy sucked. Do you think he's going to creep back into your DMs one more time?
I don't know. Hopefully he's moved on from worrying about what people write about him. I think that's, maybe DePaul's the right school for him where there won't be as much media interest. So he won't be so interested in reading what people are saying about him. To me, that was the ultimate sign that he was a mid-major coach. You think Thad Matta was reading anything that writers were writing about him and reaching out to them? I don't. So yeah, whatever. I'm over the Holtman era. Glad we're ready to turn a new page. I want to be very clear. I am not anti-Diebler. I'm just saying I don't know how people can say it's a slam dunk because it's just you don't have
people saying that though. Are there people saying that?
Tons of people in our comments
really?
that just think it's just like this super great hire, and maybe it will be, but I think you're guessing, hoping you're going to be right later, so you can say I told you so.
I'm hopeful. I guess I'm hopeful. That's where I'm at. I'm not saying I don't think it's a slam dunk. I think he can be good, and I hope he will be good, but I don't know how anyone could say, oh, this is like, Jay Wright would be a slam dunk hire. But aside from that, there's not many slam dunk hires out there.
Do you think that he was Ohio State's first choice? I mean, of course, Bjork's going to say every time we, asked a question, it circled back around to Diebler and this, that, and which they're going to say that, right? But do you think that he was their first choice, their second choice, their third choice? What's your gut tell you?
It's not a static answer because they begin looking, he's an interim guy. They're looking around. They're sending feelers to agents. They're talking to coaches that are in season, and then he beats Purdue, and then he starts to Ohio State's style of play is changing, and people are like, including myself, including us, I think, oh, this is the dead cat bounce. The old boss is gone. Everyone's performing differently under the new boss, and also sort of getting feelers from other schools because it's now poaching season, and then they're winning more games, and then they're winning into the Big Ten tournament. And then they're winning into at that point he had been offered the job. But the guys that we had on our radar that did not end up at Ohio State you can see what kind of happened. Look who Louisville got. And the Dusty May stuff in Michigan, I think you're just biding time before you end up in Bloomington, Dusty May.
Let's talk about May real quick because that's the guy that a lot of Ohio State fans wanted. And Jake, all of a sudden, Diebler has someone he's going to be compared to every step of the way for the next 5 years.
His ascent with like one half of basketball in the NCAA tournament and some questionable officiating that basically was the linchpin to the Final Four run. They've kind of fallen flat since then, including this year in the tournament. They
made it.
The conference tournament and the NCAA tournament. He was either fraudulent or very distracted because those weren't like oof losses. Those were losses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll say this about Jake, man. I mean, Chris, you can testify to this. We're talking about basketball for the first time, like kind of like an excited tones too, for the first time in a long time. So
new beginning.
If we were hot taking, Chris, I would remind you that 53 years ago, Indiana, a blue blood basketball program, hired the head coach of Army, not a guy with like a ton of experience. He was as old as the players he was coaching, and they went on a 28-year heater that had 3 natties in it.
Ramzy calling Jake Diebler to choke someone out. Just put it down.
Carrying him to Orville, Ohio. Robert Montgomery Knight. Jake Diebler. You heard it here first.
Nobody wants it to work out more than me. I mean, I feel like I'm, amongst this group, a pretty diehard Ohio State basketball fan when it comes down to it. And I hope it works out great. But if you could have given me a McDermott or probably a May or a Sean Miller, I would have taken those guys first. We'll see how it shakes out.
What happened with Miller?
Work out great.
That kind of came and went. He either has some enemies or didn't have interest, because that felt like it was. I mean, he knows the neighborhood.
His team kind of fell flat down the stretch too. I don't know if that did him a ton of favors. Like that X team did not play well down the stretch, but that's a good question because, for a while it felt like, it's going to be Miller, Dusty Mace, someone like that. Right.
Yeah.
And Jay keeps winning. And here we are. Let's pivot to football. I do enjoy talking hoops again. It is kind of fun. And I hope that, we get to talk a lot more about hoops and winning hoops, more importantly. No running backs coach still. And I've got to say, it's super weird still seeing Tony Alford on Twitter and Michigan stuff. It just blows my mind every time. I can't, it's weird, man.
It's weird. And also the timing. He left in the middle of spring practices. Like he's, you talk about, we've seen some pieces on guys who have played or coached at both Ohio State and Michigan. Gary Moeller was a Ohio State captain, coached at Michigan. Has a guy ever coached at Ohio State, Michigan in the same spring session?
Yeah, same calendar year, basically, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the curious one. I mean, the writing was on the wall. I didn't expect Alford to coach past this year. I thought he would. I think I wrote about this last week. He has Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, and a team that's pretty much designed to win this year. And his resume had been just A's or C's and D's, just up or down, mostly down. This was one of those like leave on top season opportunities he would have had. And it's very interesting that he chose to leave before it, because whoever takes this job and with weird, awkward timing, you're going to look at the running back room and be like, oh, look how they performed. The offensive line has a year of seasoning. You've got 2 guys that are not going to have load management issues. In fact, they want to share the ball. And an offense that's going to be dynamic and also have some real running game chops from a strategy standpoint. There's very few guys ever that are as good as coaching rushing schemes as Chip Kelly. Why wouldn't you just stick around for that?
Yeah.
Eat some pride, make your almost $1 million, and then go take a better job instead of taking a lateral move for the 30th time in 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on it when you said eat some pride, because from what I understand, it sounds like some hurt feelings were in play. Did not get the extension.
That's pretty clear.
Did not get the extension that some of the other guys got. Maybe felt picked on from time to time. And for him, I always heard that he was a threat to go to the NFL. So the Michigan thing kind of did catch me off guard, because if you're figuring if you're going to make that move, which let's be real, it's an easier job in the NFL than college these days. Stick around, like you said, with this loaded roster, go out on top, go get a job in the NFL and do whatever you want. But it's going to be spicy in November.
It's always spicy. I just not sure I get it, but hey, man, do you?
Yeah, I'm kind of over it. I mean, he got a couple $100,000 raise, somewhere in that neighborhood, to move on. He's gone for a bunch of different head coaching jobs and not gotten them. Most assistants don't stay at the same program for that long. For as long as he's been here at that age, like it's not where he was destined to finish up probably. And I'm not sweating it. Of all the years for a running back coach to move on, particularly if you thought he had it, I'm not informed enough to know what kind of skill set he really had as a running back coach, but I don't know how much coaching Trey and Judkins actually need, right? So I think of all the years for something like that to happen right now, it seems like this would be a year where you could pretty easily absorb it.
So who's going to be the replacement?
Michigan's running back room like comes down with like this rash of soft tissue injuries, like where they have 5 guys that are injured. Be like, hold on a second. Maybe we've been tough on Mickey Marotti.
I was going to say Marotti be retweeting those.
Maybe it was Tony Alford all along.
Hey, they lost a safety the other night, man. So
yeah, that's a bummer, man.
That's a big one for him.
Yeah.
Ohio
who do you guys want to see replace Alford? I mean, I know they're talking to people still. Eddie George obviously says he's not interested. You've got some other guys out there that, have passed, whether it's been officially announced they passed or not. But I think that Ohio State's tried for a couple of other guys that have said, no thank you at the time. Any names you guys like right now?
I don't have names, but I have concepts. Some companies you go work for, and they're heavy on process, and so you just run the play. You're just doing what's been given to you. Other like smaller companies, they don't have processes yet. They have no real hygiene for how the business operates, and they're like, "Go ahead, cook, do what you want to do." Ohio State right now is the former. You've got an offensive-minded head coach. You've got Chip Kelly, who is basically a head coach emeritus in that scenario. Justin Fry is entrenched right now as the offensive line coach. What's our running back coach going to do from an innovation standpoint? He's just going to run the damn play. You actually, ironically, need someone like Tony Alford with that setup, someone who's got more of a paternal style of coaching, who isn't going in and innovating and doing X's and O stuff, but rather keeping the guys fresh, motivated, and focused on what they need to accomplish on a week-to-week basis or during the offseason. So I would imagine they will bring in someone that's older.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Take on more of a just run the play type of process oriented head that fits into the culture of the coaching staff. I don't know. Tell me to name who that is right now. I can't. It's middle of the damn spring. They're all busy. All the guys are occupied right now.
That's a really interesting take because all that makes a ton of sense to me. I thought you might even say quite the opposite though. Of if you've got Kelly, you've got Day, you've got Hartline as a position coach who's very established. Could that be a time to bring in someone a little younger, like they did in the secondary with Guerreri, right? Because you got Walton who's cooking. You feel good about Knowles' defense. You got all these guys back in the secondary that feel good. Could you? I don't know who some of the names like Pepe Pearson or someone like that, right? That doesn't have a lot of, a ton of experience because you could bring him along and you only need so much from that right now. Like, could you be making more of a long-term home run hire than like, oh gosh, we need to get somebody in here right now kind of thing that can plug this hole? I don't see it as like this super drastic hole, at least from a day-to-day coaching standpoint. Yeah. So I wondered if maybe they might go the route where they get someone a little younger that maybe they feel like they can, groom over time to be, an elite recruiter or whatever it is. But but like I said, I was thinking you might go a totally different direction, but as you're making those points, I'm like, another old head would be a great thing as well.
Yeah, you got to develop the young guys too, right?
Yeah, Day, Hartline, Fry, and I don't think Guerreri, but those 3 guys played in the 2000s. That's how old we're getting. Mm-hmm. All 3 of those guys on the offensive side of the ball are playing this millennium, and I think they would want someone. Pepe would be fine, right? He got out in '96. I think he would crawl to Columbus for the job. The fact that he doesn't have it tells me that they haven't pursued it. I know a guy really well who played for him at Marshall, who ran the ball for him, like position room, thinks the world of him as a coach. And I respect the guy's opinion. But the fact that they still don't have one after this weekend, I think they probably have an idea of who they want to be able to work with the hierarchy there, and they just haven't been able to land the guy yet.
You guys thinking what I'm thinking?
Nicky Sualua?
It's time to make them a call to DeMario, man. Let's do this. Yeah,
let's just go. Bike up to Columbus.
You drive by the WAC. There's just like a green dirt bike parked out front by the Woody statue, and that's how you know they're cooking.
Skid marks.
Yeah. It's like the smoke when they pick a pope, man. If you see the green dirt bike, you know the running backs room is heating up.
I know that Maurice Claret played into the 2000s, and I just said they want someone older, but I know Claret very well. He's chronologically, pushing 40, but he's lived a few lives. I think he'd be the old man in the room. And he also comes from a place of domain expertise when it comes to being a running back at Ohio State.
He does. He's got some, he's certainly aged into some wisdom too. And it's kind of nice to see that. Big visit this weekend. Got to talk about this for a hot second. David Sanders Jr., offensive tackle from North Carolina, number 1 OT in the class, number 2 player in the class. I know he's bringing quite a few family members up for the visit. Ohio State's in it, but there's the Georgias, there's the Clemsons right down the road. So I don't know that they feel really good like he's going to pick the Buckeyes at this point in time, but maybe they can wow them this weekend. What's the weather looking like, Chris? We got a good forecast?
Oh, don't even know. It's March.
Yeah. So it's, I think 50s, mid 50s. Yeah. Welcome to March, mid 50s. But big visit there. And then the coaches clinic, the weekend of the spring game, they announced a round table. And how fun would this be to sit in and watch this? AJ Hawk, James Laurinaitis, Bobby Carpenter, Anthony Schlegel for that. What do we got there?
61 degrees.
All right.
Hey, 60s.
Yeah. Well, he's from North Carolina. He's not from Aruba. He's from North Carolina. So, it's like, he's not used to he's not going to get blown away by bad weather, but it'll be all right.
He'll walk out and be like, hey, you know what? This is an October game.
Yeah. Yeah. This is football. Round table with the linebackers. Last year, of course, they had the round table with Ryan Day, Urban Meyer, Jim Tressel, and John Cooper, but just such a fun round table. And I know a couple high school coaches that will be attending that. And man, I kind of want to fake some credentials and just go listen to those guys talk. And Can we spin up what was that football team in Columbus that didn't exist?
The Ohio Glory?
No, the high school team that played IMG and got
Sycamores
throttled.
Or Bishop?
Yeah, Bishop Sycamore. Yeah, do you guys want to? Are we the OCDC and safeties coach at Bishop Sycamore? You guys want to try to get into that room?
My God, we could be the South Harmon Institute of Technology.
Fun stuff. A little bit of Titletown stuff to close with this week. Women's hockey won their second national championship in 3 seasons, topping number 2 Wisconsin 1-0. Joy Dunn with a wrister with about 7:12 to play for the winner for the Buckeyes. This is a game that had 0 penalties, which is so rare in ice hockey. Neither team was whistled, man. Just a fun game to watch. Action, 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 action. Dunn, of course, is a freshman, led the team in goals. She's the younger sister of Jency Dunn and Jessica Dunn, 2 other former Buckeye ice hockey players. Nadine Muzerall, best coach in town right now.
Awesome.
Easily. She's winning during money season. I mean, that's the 3rd title game. She's only 66% in title games.
Yeah,
they're there every year. That Dunn game winner, the wrister, that was the Eruzione shot. She just upper left.
Yeah,
across the ice. It was beautiful. And by the way, no penalties, but having watched the whole game, that was a really clean, fast game, and they're letting them play was easy. There was no borderline whatever. They had 5,000 people there, which is pretty damn good attendance considering the competition.
About 9 times more
sports.
Yeah, 9 times more than the ladies' home venue holds, which is insane. They play in front of 600.
Play good as hell. It's a really women's hockey is with incredible velocity become extremely watchable. And it's funny what happens when you put a spotlight on sports you don't traditionally turn on. You get interested in them.
Yeah.
Exposure to everything.
Here's my secret hockey hack is I like watching, especially U.S. Canadian women have this bitter rivalry. They're both really good, the 2 alphas of the sport. And when you watch women's international hockey, they carry it across the blue. Men dump that stuff and go get in the corners and go caveman on each other. Women's game is cleaner, more fun to watch, in my opinion, at least. I love watching the U.S.-Canada games because it's clean. They're carrying over the blue line. They're making good passes. So fun to see that. You should watch
Finland play Russia sometime and see if that changes your mind.
In women or men? Men? Yeah, Winter War Part 2 over there.
It doesn't matter. Those 2 countries hate each other.
Yeah, sure do. 141-pounder Jesse Mendez won a wrestling national championships for the Buckeyes over the weekend, knocking off Penn State's Bo Bartlett with a takedown in the final seconds, which was fun. Fun to see that. First OSU wrestler to win a natty since Kyle Snyder in 2018. I read that and I was like, man, that seems how can that be, man? That's 6 years already.
Yeah. I don't know how he got out of that. I thought you went from he's going to lose. He's about to get 2 points against him, and he kind of MacGyvered his way out of it. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's a clutch win for him, and congratulations to him and the women's ice hockey team. Also to the Pistol team for winning their 4th natty in a row. Did you see how they phrased that tweet when they announced it? It's for the first time in program history, we've won 4 natties in a row. And I was like, oh, you had me in the first half, man. I thought it was just I don't follow the sport that close. I didn't know it was their 4th in a row.
You've never 4-peated before? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. It was their first 4-peat. But the way they phrased it, they're like, where's this? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
That's good phrasing. I lived in Chicago in the late 90s. I think more than one of us did.
Yeah.
And the Bulls thing was repeat the 3-peat.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was great. Fun thing about this pistol team too, and fencing and some of these other more obscure teams in the OSU campus. Really hard to do NIL with them because a lot of their student athletes don't have work visas and are not American citizens, so they're not eligible for NIL. Like we tried to do a lot with the hockey team, and like most of them are Canadian and can't do anything, man. Like Sophie Jakes, when she played here 2 years ago or a year ago, was great and couldn't take a dime in NIL money. So
what do they shoot in pistol? Like I would watch it, but I don't think it's on. Like are they shooting like?
Where do you go? Where do they even do it? Do they go out like on like the corner of Sawmill and Bethel and just start firing?
That's
Sullivan,
man. But that's different. It's not competitive.
Like where do you? That's a good. We should do a dive on it sometime this summer for one of the shows. We should actually look into it, research it, come back and tell our audience what kind of guns.
We can get the head coach on. Is that what they call it? The head coach,
Yeah.
the head shooter. I don't know what they call it. Yeah, we should get him on.
The sheriff. It's the sheriff, man. It should be the sheriff. It's probably not, but it should be the sheriff. We're going to call him the sheriff. But well, let's get the coach on. Let's do that, man, because you're right. It's a sport they're kicking ass at, and I know hardly anything about it, honestly. Yeah, we should do that. We should get some of these coaches on in the summer and just ask them questions about these sports, because I have a lot of pistol questions right now, and I really want to know these. And but anything we forget anything this week? Anything you guys want to throw in there before we sign off?
I think just in memory of the dearly departed and one time 11 Warriors Slack main character, Head Busta, coach passed away this week unexpectedly. Used to sit on the bench for the women's team, was wildly entertaining, very engaged with Ohio State sports, with the athletes, and was wildly entertaining on social media. And we miss him, but we will miss him even more now.
Indeed. Kelsey Mitchell's father gone too soon. R.I.P. to him. Chris, any last thoughts from you?
I'm just sitting here thinking, you said Nadine might have been too big for what we want to try to do with pistol and whatever, but I want to get her on. She's like my Ohio State crush, so let's get her on.
That's going to make it a little harder to get her on now, man. Good luck to Good luck, yeah.
She really is such a badass, for real.
Yeah,
like,
she is.
So, like, she's already thinking next year, like, yeah, we're gets guys in the portal, people who want to go after a championship. Like, she's just the boss, man. I love her.
Can we talk about what makes her just a phenomenal head coach of any sport? She is like, she's a total badass with her coaching, and then she's also incredibly human at the same time. Usually, you don't see both of those in the same person. Usually, you either get the gruff exterior or the sort of like, emotional heartstrings type. She, when they win and I've watched both of those moments when they've won the last two titles, and everything just kind of falls down and she gets super vulnerable. And I absolutely love that. That's amazing. That's what you love about sports.
Yeah, I saw your tweet highlighting that. That was a really cool insight there. It was she's great. She's a cool person too. We had her on the radio show when we were on The Fan, so we will work to get her on this summer. But thanks for joining us.
Just don't be thirsty when we have her
on. No doubt, dude. Jeez.
I'm pretty cool on the radio. We're just talking here.
Like, you're hating Jake Diebler and loving Nadine Muzerall the entire show.
Jake Diebler, come on now.
We're dicing these up for later. We got it though. Hey, thanks for joining us. As always, take care of each other. Be good to each other.